Hello and a warm welcome back to Ask Dr. M. I hope you've all had a great week. It's certainly been a busy one as far as I'm concerned. I have had time to still go through all your questions, and a lot are actually still about anxiety. And after my video last week, a lot have been about unexplained anxiety, and a lot of people ask me why they feel anxious because they can't actually find a particular root cause. So I'm going to follow up from last week and still talk more about anxiety and how it can sometimes be unexplained, the whys, and also what you can actually do about that going forward. So first of all, I still have to reiterate, anxiety is actually a good thing because it's just telling you that something needs addressing and just something isn't quite right, and that doesn't have to be a problem. It's just something that does need addressing, and it's important to know that there is always a root cause. Even if you're not consciously aware of it, there is always a root cause, and it doesn't always have to be a bad thing. So I'm going to go through why that is as well. But generally speaking, when it does come to anxiety and it's a chronic anxiety, that means you've always had it and it's always existing. And if it's actually a problem to you in your life, in terms of it's actually limiting you from doing things and really impeding on your life, then it's most likely a deep-rooted psychological trigger that you might even not be consciously aware of. So it's probably worth investing in either seeing a very good therapist, or you can actually work through the book, as you know, which is Out of Your Comfort Zone, which seriously will take you through everything that you need to do to get to the grassroots level, and then obviously how to actually rip it out. So it's very important that you do the work there to find out what the deep psychological buried triggers are, as that's often the case. However, it's not always a bad reason or a bad route as to why we feel anxiety, because for some people they can actually be very intuitive, and that can mean that you sometimes pick up on other people's energy because the emotional part of your brain is actually hypersensitive, so you can detect other people's energy, and if other people are anxious or nervous or fearful of things, then you'll detect that and you'll actually absorb that and feel it too. That's something I particularly have myself, so I really know all about that. And then there's another reason. When you are very intuitive, you can also feel anxious when you can detect future events that are going to happen that aren't particularly good, or you can detect when certain things are wrong. So for example, as a child, I was very hyper intuitive, and I knew when certain things were going on, I would get a bad feeling about it and I would be extremely anxious, to the point that I used to be sick a lot. I used to vomit a lot because I'd be so nervous about a certain thing, and that was just through a short period of my life, a year, when I was at school and I was detecting certain things that were going on. But as a child, I wasn't aware of that, and nobody would know I was anxious on the outside, but certainly as an internal feeling I knew, and I knew something wasn't right. But as a young 4 or 5 year old, that's very difficult to articulate, and nobody was there to explain to me what my internal nerves were. I used to ask the other children if they felt nervous, and they didn't obviously have a clue what I was talking about. But as an adult, I know that was part of who I am in terms of being hypersensitive and a very intuitive person. So that can sometimes be a reason for unexplained anxiety. The fact that you tune into other things not being quite right. So as I always say, anxiety is a really good thing to always alert us that something isn't quite right. So as I talked on last week's video, which is worth running over if you're still experiencing all these problems, there are lots of reasons as to why we feel the anxiety that something isn't quite right. So that could even be a physical trigger, something medical that you need to go and check out. It can be even hormones. That's a big one, and that's something I didn't talk about last week, because there are so many things to cover. But certainly even PMT for ladies, perimenopause, these things give anxiety, and they are unexplained, but you will feel an overwhelming sense of anxiety. However, those feelings usually dissipate, so it's really important to be able to distinguish between real anxiety, where you need to probe and you need to look what really needs addressing in your life, or what deep roots really need addressing, to what actually you might be feeling unexplained in terms of anxiety that the hormones give off, and that feeling usually dissipates after a while. But certainly, even when we are talking about a case of hormones, if you've still got deep-rooted psychological triggers, they will only make it even worse. So it's always best to get them addressed anyway. Other reasons I didn't mention last week for unexplained anxiety are actually certain medications. So believe it or not, even antidepressants themselves can give a side effect of anxiety. So it's important again to know that you can do the work to get to the root level, to release depression, release anxiety, to actually be able to wean yourself off the medication. It's unnecessary if you get the right help and the right support to do that, and do that gradually and safely. Again, the book will always take you through that, will help you with that, and I have an amazing case studies of my client and other clients I've seen that have been able to wean themselves off antidepressants and have had serious issues with anxiety all through their life, and we've managed to come down off the medication, and now they're living a life totally beyond limits without any anxious feelings. And when they do get anxious feelings, they know exactly what they're about, and they know how to respond to them. So as I said, you can look on last week's video, as there are tons of reasons for unexplained anxiety, but also how you can start looking at deep psychological root triggers that you might not be aware of. So there are lots of things to consider. The main thing is acknowledging it's a good thing and working out just something that you need to address that's personal to you. And as I said, there are so many things you can do about it. I have an entire list of anxiety busters, even foods you can eat to help with that. So there's always something very important that you can do. So I just want you to know that you don't have to keep worrying about it, because this is a big thing that I keep getting asked lots of questions about. But once you do take those steps to really come out of your comfort zone, to tackle anxiety, and know that you can do, and know that you can find out what those root causes are, then you can go out and you can do anything, because ultimately it pertains to a fear, and you don't have to suffer that. There's just so much you can do. So you can even start actually by taking what I call my zone test, and that's to see what your current comfort zone level is. And through doing that and answering a series of introspective questions that it takes you through, you'll be able to detect what areas of your life that you need to work on. And if you do suffer badly from anxiety, it will help to highlight certain issues as well. But you can take that at the beginning of the book, then actually work through the book in stages, get to these root causes, rip them out, and then do the test again to actually see how far you've come. And then you can keep going back to it to see areas you can work on and fulfill, to really feel the best you actually can, to go forward and live a life fully beyond limits. And you can actually do the zone test free, safely and confidential online. That's on my website, which is all the W's out of your comfort zone.uk, and you'll be able to just take that there, and it will give you an automatic score and a brief breakdown of where you're currently at in life and where you can go to and the kind of things that you need to do. But going back to the beginning, one of the main things to answer the question about unexplained anxiety, and when you don't understand what anxiety is, it's a good thing and it's something that needs addressing in your life, and it's always got a root, but not necessarily a bad one. So from psychological triggers, physical, medical triggers, medication, being hyper intuitive, all of these things, from even diet, what you're eating, a lack of B vitamins, all kinds of reasons there are, and it's down to you to really now start addressing those, and just know that you can, and there's lots you can do about it. So that's it from me today. So I've got to dash as usual with a busy day. I will wish you having a super weekend. Hopefully we'll have some nice weather, and I keep your questions coming, and I shall see you next week.